Millionaire CEO helps crying girl find lost necklace, then realizes it's identical to his family heirloom. Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Now, enjoy this remarkable tale of fate, connection, and what truly matters in life. The sleek private jet touched down on the small coastal airstrip, its engines winding down as Alexander Brooks stared at his phone's screen. 37 missed calls from his executive board illuminated the display, casting a blue glow across his tired features. With a decisive swipe, he finally silenced the device. "Will you be needing the car to remain on standby, Mr. Brooks?" the pilot asked, standing respectfully in the cabin doorway. Alex shook his head. "Tell Davis to take the weekend off. I'll call when I'm ready to return." The uncertainty in the pilot's expression was clear. In 15 years, Alex had never taken an unscheduled vacation, let alone one without a definite end date. Stepping onto the tarmac, Alex inhaled deeply. The salt-tinged air of Tranquil Cove felt foreign after years of recycled office ventilation. At 38, he'd built Horizon Technologies into a $17 billion empire, but the cost was etched in the premature lines around his eyes and the persistent tension in his shoulders that even his tailor couldn't quite disguise. Tranquil Cove unfolded before him as his hired car navigated the coastal road. A picturesque beach town with colorful cottages, a historic lighthouse standing sentinel on the northern bluff, and a main street lined with family-owned shops, untouched by corporate chains. The contrast between his tailored charcoal suit and the casual beach atmosphere couldn't have been more stark. His phone buzzed again. Jessica Ward, his executive assistant, had moved from calls to increasingly urgent texts. "Board meeting emergency scheduled for 3 p.m. Critical you attend virtually. Merger paperwork has complications." Alex silenced it again, surprising himself. The Northeastern Pacific Technologies merger was the culmination of 3 years of strategic planning, his crowning achievement that would cement Horizon's dominance in the tech market. Yet for the first time in his career, he felt utterly disconnected from the thrill of the deal. "Sir, we're approaching Grand Tides Resort," the driver announced, slowing as they neared the gleaming modern structure that jutted impressively over the coastline. "Change of plans," Alex said suddenly. "Is there somewhere smaller?" "Something local." The driver's eyebrows lifted slightly in the rearview mirror. "There's the Lighthouse Inn in town, family-owned, been there since the 1950s. Nothing fancy, though." "Perfect." The Lighthouse Inn was everything the Grand Tides Resort wasn't. Modest, weathered by decades of salt air, with a lobby featuring nautical antiques and handmade quilts rather than minimalist furniture and abstract art. Behind the front desk, a man in his 60s looked up from a crossword puzzle, offering a casual nod that suggested Alex's expensive suit didn't particularly impress him. "Welcome to the Lighthouse Inn. Checking in?" "Yes, I need a room for a week." The time frame felt both foreign and liberating on his tongue. "Name?" Alex hesitated. "Alexander Walker." His middle name, a small rebellion against being recognized. The innkeeper, Tom, according to his faded name tag, studied him briefly before sliding over a physical registration card. "We're not much for formalities here, Mr. Walker. Breakfast is included, served from 6 to 10. Room 8 has the best view of the water, if you're interested." 20 minutes later, Alex stood in a simple but clean room with whitewashed walls, nautical blue accents, and wide windows facing the ocean. The space contained none of the luxury he was accustomed to, yet something about its unpretentious comfort felt right. He unpacked his hastily gathered belongings, realizing with mild amusement that he'd brought 3 nearly identical suits, but no casual clothing. His phone buzzed again. 17 new messages. The merger was apparently unraveling without his constant attention. For a moment, instinct nearly won out. His finger hovered over the accept button, ready to dive back into the familiar waters of crisis management and negotiation. It was what he excelled at, what had defined him for nearly 2 decades. Instead, he walked to the window. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the waves with amber light. When was the last time he'd actually watched a sunset? His grandfather used to insist on it, claiming it reset the soul. Henry Brooks had built the original iteration of what became Horizon Technologies, but somehow had never lost sight of these small moments. Alex's restlessness propelled him back to his phone. He responded to 3 critical emails, fielded an urgent call from his CFO, and found himself drafting meeting notes well past midnight. The small desk in the corner became a miniature command center as the merger crisis expanded. Sleep came fitfully, his mind still churning with stock projections and contingency plans. Dawn found him staring at the ceiling, exhausted, yet wired. This wasn't an escape, it was just a change of location. The crushing weight of responsibilities had followed him seamlessly. Alex sat up, running a hand through his disheveled hair. This wasn't what his doctor had meant by, take a break before you break. Something needed to change, or the next 2 weeks of prescribed rest would be as futile as the breathing exercises and meditation apps he'd already abandoned. A decisive moment crystallized as he watched early light spill across the wooden floorboards. Retrieving his phone, he powered it down completely, something he hadn't done in years, and placed it in the room's small safe along with his laptop. Dressed in his least formal outfit, a light blue button-down and charcoal slacks that still screamed corporate, Alex left his room and headed toward the beach. With each step away from the inn, a peculiar lightness began to spread through his chest. The strange sensation of being disconnected, untethered from the constant digital demands. The morning beach was nearly empty, just a few dedicated joggers and an elderly couple walking a small dog. Alex removed his shoes, feeling cold sand between his toes for the first time in what must have been decades. The last time had been with his grandfather, during their final summer together before Henry's passing. The memory surfaced with unexpected clarity, Henry pointing out the constellations as they faded with the dawn, telling stories of chances not taken and what truly mattered in the end. As the sunrise painted the sky in swaths of pink and gold, Alex found himself breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in years. His lungs expanded fully, the perpetual tightness in his chest temporarily releasing. He continued his barefoot walk until a weathered structure caught his attention. A cafe built on stilts over the sand, its wide deck already occupied by early risers cradling steaming mugs. A hand-painted sign swung gently in the morning breeze. Ocean View Cafe, where every breakfast comes with perspective. Alex felt the first genuine smile in months tug at his lips. Perspective was exactly what he'd come here seeking, though he hadn't been able to articulate it until now. Entering the cafe, he chose a corner table facing the water, the furthest from other patrons. A waitress with silver-streaked hair brought coffee without him asking, as if sensing exactly what he needed. "First time in Tranquil Cove?" she asked, filling his cup. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to those of us who've watched newcomers for 40 years, she replied with a wink. "Enjoy the quiet. It's our specialty here." As she walked away, Alex turned toward the panoramic view, watching waves roll gently toward shore. For a moment, one perfect still moment, he felt a strange sense of peace, as if he'd finally surfaced after years underwater. Tomorrow's problems would still be there tomorrow. For now, there was just coffee, sunrise, and the surprising relief of being nowhere in particular. Little did he know that his life was about to change forever in this unassuming little cafe by the sea. If you're enjoying the story so far, drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Now, let's continue with what happened next at that little beachside cafe. Alex was savoring his second cup of coffee when a sound cut through the cafe's gentle murmur, a child's soft, trembling sob. He glanced up, instinctively searching for the source of distress among the scattered morning patrons. Near the counter, a small girl with wild curly hair was on her hands and knees, searching under tables. Tears streamed down her face as she moved from one spot to another with increasing desperation. The other customers glanced at her sympathetically, but remained uninvolved, perhaps assuming a parent would appear at any moment. The Ocean View Cafe had the worn-in comfort of a place that had witnessed decades of conversations. Mismatched tables and chairs were arranged to maximize the spectacular views through enormous windows. Local artwork and fishing nets adorned walls the color of sea glass. The rich aroma of fresh pastries and coffee filled the air, mingling with the salt breeze drifting through open doors. Alex returned his gaze to his coffee, trying to ignore the child's distress. Children were as foreign to him as the concept of a vacation, fascinating in theory, but bewildering in practice. His own childhood had ended abruptly with his parents' death when he was 12, leaving him in the care of his grandfather, who valued resilience above comfort. The little girl's search pattern brought her closer to his corner table. She was perhaps 7 or 8, wearing overalls decorated with embroidered stars, and a yellow t-shirt that brightened her brown skin. Her curls created a halo effect in the morning sunlight, streaming through the windows. "It has to be here somewhere," she whispered to herself, voice catching on a hiccup. Alex shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The cafe owner, Maggie, according to her name tag, approached the child with gentle concern. "Still no luck finding it, Lily?" The girl shook her head, fresh tears threatening. "I checked everywhere. It was right here when I was drawing, and now it's gone." "I'm sure it'll turn up, sweetheart. Sometimes things hide in plain sight." Maggie offered an encouraging smile before being called away by another customer. The girl, Lily, continued her determined search, moving methodically from table to table. Alex tried to focus on the newspaper he'd found, but the child's quiet persistence kept drawing his attention. There was something about her methodical approach that reminded him of himself, a problem solver facing a seemingly insurmountable challenge. When Lily accidentally bumped his table while checking underneath, his coffee sloshed dangerously close to the rim. Alex's natural response would have been irritation, but something unexpected happened instead. The naked grief on her small face as she looked up at him apologetically bypassed his usual defenses. "I'm sorry," she said, quickly wiping tears with the back of her hand. "I didn't mean to bump your table." Instead of the dismissive nod that would have been his typical response, Alex found himself asking, "What are you looking for?" The question surprised them both. Lily studied him carefully, as if assessing whether he genuinely wanted to help or was merely being polite. "My star necklace," she finally answered, her voice small but serious. "It was my grandma's before she went to heaven. Mom said to be extra careful with it, and now it's gone." Alex recognized the particular devastation in her eyes, not just the loss of an object, but the weight of disappointing someone who trusted you. It was a feeling he remembered from his own childhood. "When did you last have it?" he asked, setting down his newspaper. "I was drawing at that table." She pointed to a spot by the window. "I remember touching it when the nice lady brought my hot chocolate, and then I went to get napkins, and when I came back..." Her lip quivered. "Mom's going to be so sad." Something in her devastation broke through Alex's carefully maintained emotional walls. Before he could analyze the impulse, he found himself standing and approaching her, dropping to one knee to reach her eye level. "I'm good at finding things," he told her, surprising himself with the gentle tone in his voice. "Let's retrace your steps." The offer was so unlike him that for a moment he didn't recognize himself. Alexander Brooks didn't comfort crying children. He ran a technology empire. He made billion-dollar decisions before breakfast. He certainly didn't crawl around cafes looking for lost jewelry. Lily studied him with intelligent eyes the color of amber. There was a maturity in her gaze that seemed beyond her years. "I'm Lily," she said finally, extending a small hand with solemn formality. "Alex," he replied simply, shaking her hand with equal seriousness. For the first time in years, he didn't add his last name or title, a small but significant omission. "Did you look under all the tables?" he asked, switching to problem-solving mode. "Twice," she confirmed, "and in the bathroom, and by the counter." "Could it have fallen outside? On the deck, maybe?" Lily's eyes widened. "I didn't think of that." Alex found himself following the child out onto the weathered wooden deck that wrapped around the cafe. The morning sun was higher now, glinting off the water and warming the salt-tinged air. A few more patrons had arrived, sipping coffee and enjoying the view, oblivious to the small drama unfolding. "I walked this way," Lily explained, carefully retracing her earlier path. "Mom dropped me off to have breakfast with Maggie while she went to an early meeting at the Marine Center. She doesn't let me wear the necklace usually, but today was special because it's Grandma's birthday." Alex listened as she continued her story, noting how she navigated her grief with determination rather than surrender. another trait he recognized in himself. The search expanded to include the wooden steps leading from the deck to the beach below. Alex could see his expensive leather shoes gathering sand as they descended, but strangely, he didn't care. "What does this necklace look like?" he asked as they reached the bottom step. "It's a star," Lily said, using her fingers to trace a five-pointed shape. "But not a regular star. It has little dots on it like the sky. Grandma said it shows the way home, no matter how lost you feel." As they began methodically searching the sand around the cafe's stilts, Alex felt something unexpected, a sense of purpose entirely different from the driving ambition that typically fueled his days. For this moment, finding one child's treasured necklace seemed more important than any merger or acquisition he'd ever pursued. "We'll find it," he promised. And for reasons he couldn't yet understand, he was determined to keep that promise. The morning sun climbed higher as Alex and Lily methodically combed the beach beneath the cafe. Alex had abandoned his suit jacket on a nearby rock, his white shirt sleeves rolled up to the elbows. He'd never imagined himself crawling through sand in clothes that cost more than most people's monthly rent, yet here he was. "I searched over there already," Lily called, pointing toward a cluster of rocks. She'd organized their efforts with surprising efficiency, dividing the search area into sections. "Maybe we should check where the tide comes in?" The beach at low tide stretched before them, an expansive canvas of pristine sand, dotted with tide pools that glittered in the morning light. Seagulls circled overhead, occasionally swooping down to investigate potential treasures. The waves rolled in with gentle persistence, each one claiming a bit more of the shoreline. Alex noticed a teenage boy watching them curiously from where he was setting up rental beach chairs. "Need some help?" the teen called out. "We're looking for a star necklace," Lily explained. "It's very special." The teen, Jake, according to his staff shirt, joined their search, asking questions about when Lily last remembered having it. As they worked, Alex found himself listening to Lily's stories about her grandmother. "She came from really far away," Lily explained, carefully shifting sand with a stick she'd found. "From Hong Kong, that's in China," she added helpfully, unaware that Alex had offices there. "And the necklace was hers?" Alex asked, genuinely interested. Lily nodded, her curls bouncing. "She gave it to me before she died last year. She said as long as I had it, I'd always find my way back to the people who loved me." The sentiment struck an unexpected chord in Alex. His own grandfather had spoken similar words when he'd given Alex his family heirloom, words he hadn't thought about in years. Beach joggers gave curious glances as they passed the well-dressed man digging through sand alongside a child. Alex was acutely aware of how out of place he must look, yet he felt increasingly comfortable in this unexpected role. After an hour, Jake had to return to his rental stand, and Lily's optimism was beginning to wane. The search had expanded along the shoreline in both directions, but the necklace remained stubbornly hidden. "Mom's meeting will be done soon," Lily said, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know what I'll tell her." Alex studied the beach with fresh eyes, thinking logically about where a small object might have fallen. "You said you came down these steps," he confirmed, pointing to the wooden staircase leading up to the cafe. "And you were wearing the necklace then?" Lily nodded. "I remember because I was telling Maggie about the stars on it when she gave me hot chocolate." "And did you walk along the water's edge?" Another nod. "I like to see the seashells." Alex noticed the tide had come in significantly since they'd begun searching. The necklace could have fallen near the water and been carried in by the tide, he reasoned. Or it might be in one of these tide pools. As if in agreement, a wave rushed in, covering their footprints. The water swirled around tide pools, formed by clusters of rocks, creating miniature ecosystems isolated from the ocean until the next high tide. "We should check the pools before they're underwater," Alex suggested. They split up, each taking different sections of the rocky areas where small pools of seawater harbored tiny crabs, colorful anemones, and small fish, trapped until the tide returned. The work was meticulous, but Alex approached it with the same focused determination he applied to corporate acquisitions. The search became increasingly urgent as the tide continued its advance. Alex's expensive trousers were now soaked to the knees, and sand, had infiltrated his leather shoes, creating an uncomfortable grit with each step. Yet strangely, he couldn't remember the last time he'd been so present in a moment, so disconnected from the digital tether that usually dominated his attention. "I think we need to accept that it might be gone," Alex finally said gently, watching Lily's face fall. "Sometimes the ocean takes things we can't get back." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded bravely. Grandma would say it's just a thing, not a memory, but it was the only part of her I could hold. The simple wisdom in her words caught Alex off guard. He was about to suggest they return to the cafe when something caught his eye, a brief glint in a tide pool about to be swallowed by an incoming wave. Without hesitation, Alex sprinted toward it, designer shoes sinking into wet sand. He reached the tide pool just as a wave crashed over it, momentarily obscuring whatever had created the reflection. Acting on instinct, he plunged his hand into the cold water, fingers searching blindly among slippery rocks and swirling sand. His fingers closed around something solid, just as another wave crashed over him, soaking him from head to toe. Emerging from the surf with his arm triumphantly raised, Alex felt a surge of victory more satisfying than any business deal he'd ever closed. "Is this it?" he called, holding up a small star-shaped object. Lily's face transformed, joy replacing despair in an instant. She ran to him, sand flying from her feet as she approached. "You found it. You really found it." The necklace was indeed star-shaped, its silver surface etched with tiny dots forming some kind of pattern. It hung from a delicate chain that had somehow remained intact despite its ocean adventure. As Lily took the necklace with reverent hands, her face lit with relief and happiness, Alex experienced an unfamiliar warmth spreading through his chest. The feeling was entirely different from the satisfaction of corporate victories, purer somehow, and unexpectedly profound. When Lily threw her arms around his waist in a spontaneous hug, Alex stood frozen, unused to such genuine gratitude. As she pulled back and opened the locket to check if the pictures inside were safe, Alex caught a glimpse of the unusual pattern engraved on the star, and his world shifted beneath his feet. "Where did you get this?" Alex asked, his voice barely audible as he stared at the constellation pattern engraved on Lily's locket. His hands trembled slightly as he peered closer at the arrangement of stars etched into the silver. They had retreated to a quiet corner of the beach, settling on a large piece of driftwood that served as a natural bench. The cafe was visible in the distance, but here by the water's edge, with the tide now fully coming in, they had found a moment of privacy. Lily looked up, confused by his sudden intensity. "It was my grandma's. She brought it all the way from China when she was little." Alex couldn't tear his eyes from the pattern, 5 stars connected by delicate lines to form the distinctive shape of Cassiopeia, the seated queen of Greek mythology. It was identical to the pattern on the locket his grandfather had given him on his 12th birthday, the day before his parents' accident. With trembling fingers, Alex reached into his wallet and carefully extracted a worn silver star, slightly larger than Lily's but with the exact same constellation engraved on its surface. He had carried it everywhere for 20 years as a good luck charm, a tangible connection to the grandfather who had raised him. "Look," he said softly, holding his locket beside hers. Lily's eyes widened with wonder. "They're the same," she exclaimed, comparing the 2 stars. "How did you get yours?" "My grandfather gave it to me," Alex explained, memories flooding back with surprising clarity. "He said it was 1/2 of a promise, that somewhere in the world was another star that matched this one perfectly." "That's what Grandma said too." Lily was practically bouncing with excitement now. "She told me her necklace was 1/2 of a promise, that her special friend had the other 1/2, but they got separated during the war." Alex's heart raced as fragments of his grandfather's stories began to align with this impossible coincidence. Henry Brooks had often spoken of a childhood sweetheart he'd lost during the chaos of World War II, a girl from Hong Kong whose family had fled during the Japanese occupation. "What was your grandmother's name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Mai Chen," Lily answered. "She came to America when she was 10. Mom says I look just like her." Mai. The name struck Alex like a physical blow. His grandfather had mentioned that name often, especially in his final years. Henry had searched for her after the war, but could never find her. 2 continents, different last names, the chaos of post-war immigration records. Too many obstacles had kept them apart. Did your grandmother ever talk about a boy named Henry from her childhood? Lily nodded enthusiastically. She said he was her best friend. They made a promise to find each other again someday, no matter what. That's why she never took off her star even when she was very old. She tilted her head, studying Alex with newfound curiosity. Was your grandpa named Henry? Yes, Alex whispered, feeling as though the ground beneath him had suddenly shifted. Henry Brooks. Lily's face lit up with the pure excitement only a child can express at life's magical connections. So our grandparents were friends. That's why our stars match. She looked up at him with wide eyes. Do you think they're watching us right now? Before Alex could answer, Lily jumped up. My mom knows all the stories. She's at work at the Marine Center. She could tell you everything about Grandma Mai. Her enthusiasm was infectious. You should come meet her. She loves history stuff like this. As Lily tugged at his hand, Alex found himself nodding, suddenly desperate to connect these impossible dots. What were the odds that he would choose this small town, this cafe, this moment, only to find the missing piece of his grandfather's unfinished story? The Tranquil Cove Marine Conservation Center was a modern building nestled between ancient pines, its glass walls reflecting the ocean it was dedicated to protecting. Alex followed Lily through the main entrance, acutely aware of his disheveled appearance. Expensive clothes now wrinkled, salt-stained, and bearing the unmistakable evidence of his beach expedition. Mom's lab is this way, Lily announced, confidently leading him past educational displays and touch pools where visitors could interact with starfish and sea anemones. She waved to staff members who clearly knew her well. Alex's heart beat faster as they approached a door marked Research Facilities, Staff Only. He couldn't explain the strange nervousness that had overtaken him. This was about historical curiosity, he told himself. Nothing more. The door to the research lab swung open, and Alex came face to face with Emma Chen. She had Lily's same curly hair, but pulled back practically, intelligent eyes behind simple glasses, and an air of confident competence that stopped him in his tracks. She wore a white lab coat over casual clothes, a badge identifying her as E. Chen, Ph.D., Senior Marine Biologist. Mom! Lily bounded forward. I found my necklace. Well, actually, Alex found it. And guess what? His grandpa had the matching star, just like in Grandma's stories. Emma's confused gaze shifted from her daughter to the tall, expensively dressed stranger standing awkwardly in her laboratory. Her expression changed from surprise to wariness in an instant. Hello, she said carefully. I'm Emma Chen. Alexander Brooks, he replied, extending his hand. I apologize for the intrusion, but there's been a remarkable coincidence. A young man in a lab coat looked up from a microscope. His interest piqued. Dr. Rivera, can you finish these samples? Emma asked her colleague, who nodded with poorly concealed curiosity. She gestured toward a glass-walled office at the back of the lab. Let's talk in here. As they followed Emma, Alex noticed several volunteer staff members exchanging whispers, clearly wondering about the well-dressed stranger Lily had brought into their workplace. Emma's workspace was organized but personal, with Lily's colorful drawings pinned to a corkboard alongside scientific papers and conservation awards. Through the windows, Alex could see the ocean stretching to the horizon. So, Emma said, once they were seated, Lily tells me you found her grandmother's necklace. Before Alex could respond, Lily jumped in with her characteristic enthusiasm. Mom, look, his star matches mine. She held up her necklace next to the one Alex had placed on the desk. Emma's scientific skepticism was evident as she picked up both pieces, examining them closely. The craftsmanship is identical, she murmured, almost to herself. Her fingers traced the constellation pattern. This is remarkable. My grandfather was Henry Brooks, Alex explained. He grew up in Hong Kong before World War II. From what I understand, he knew a girl named Mai before the Japanese occupation separated them. Emma's expression softened slightly. My grandmother was Mai Chen. She came to America as a refugee in 1942. She studied Alex more carefully now. Brooks. Wait, not the founder of Brooks Technology Group? Alex nodded. That was my grandfather. It eventually became Horizon Technologies under my direction. Recognition dawned in Emma's eyes. You're that Alexander Brooks, the CEO. The wariness returned to her expression, as if she was reassessing everything about this encounter. I'm taking some time off, Alex said simply, not wanting to delve into his corporate identity. But yes, that's me. My grandfather spent years searching for her after the war, Alex continued, steering the conversation back to the Locketts. But her family had fled to America. He never forgot her. The words came easily, stories his grandfather had told repeatedly in his final years. Emma was silent for a moment before reaching for her phone. I have something to show you. She scrolled through photos before turning the screen toward Alex. The image showed an elderly Asian woman, her smile gentle but her eyes sharp and intelligent. This is my grandmother Mai, about 10 years ago before she passed. Alex felt a strange tightness in his chest. He pulled up a photo of his grandfather Henry from around the same time, a distinguished man with silver hair and kind eyes. The resemblance to the tiny photographs inside their respective lockets was unmistakable. It seems our grandparents never found each other, Emma said softly, but somehow their grandchildren did. The significance of this chance meeting settled over them. Alex felt an odd sense of fate, as if some long-dormant promise was finally finding fulfillment through them. Lily, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. You should come to dinner. I can show you all of Grandma's things from China, and Mom knows all the stories. Emma gave her daughter a look that suggested this wasn't an appropriate invitation to extend to a stranger, especially one who was a famous CEO. Lily, Mr. Brooks is probably very busy. Actually, Alex interrupted, surprising himself, I'd like that very much, if it's not an imposition. Emma studied him for a long moment before responding, clearly weighing whether this unusual situation warranted breaking her normal boundaries. Well, she finally said, it seems we have quite a family mystery to solve. Alex felt something shift inside him, a sense that this wasn't just about historical curiosity anymore. There was something about Emma Chen, her careful intelligence, her dedication to her work and daughter, her connection to his past, that made him want to know more. How about tonight? He suggested. I'd be happy to bring dinner. We were just going to have pasta, Emma said. Nothing fancy, but you're welcome to join us. Sometimes the simplest meals are the best ones, Alex replied, thinking of all the elaborate business dinners that had never satisfied him in any meaningful way. The look of pleasant surprise on Emma's face suggested this wasn't the response she'd expected from a billionaire CEO. Alex's phone, finally retrieved from the hotel safe, exploded with notifications as he prepared for dinner with Emma and Lily. 3 board members were threatening to resign, the merger was stalling, and the company stock had dropped 4% in his absence. Yet for the first time in his career, he found himself hitting ignore and setting the device aside. He had picked up a bottle of wine at a local shop and changed into the only casual clothes he could find, a light blue button-down and his least formal pair of slacks. Even this outfit felt too formal, but it was the best he could do. Emma's home was exactly what he expected, a modest but charming cottage near the beach with a wraparound porch, set back among coastal pines that rustled gently in the evening breeze. As Alex approached, he noticed the details that made it distinctly hers. A small garden with native plants, a collection of seashells along the porch railing, and a handmade wind chime that created gentle music in the ocean breeze. Before he could knock, the door swung open, revealing Lily in star-patterned pajamas, her eyes bright with excitement. "You came?" she exclaimed, as if she'd half expected him to disappear. "I promised I would," Alex replied, realizing how rarely he made personal promises anymore, having learned long ago that business always interrupted. Emma appeared behind her daughter, dressed casually in jeans and a soft green sweater, her curly hair loose around her shoulders. The transformation from the professional scientist he'd met earlier was striking. "Welcome," she said, with a smile that seemed both welcoming and cautious. "I hope you found our place all right." Inside, the cottage was even more charming. Overflowing bookshelves lined the walls, Comfortable mismatched furniture invited relaxation, and scientific specimens labeled in Lily's careful handwriting were displayed alongside family photos. It was the complete opposite of Alex's minimalist penthouse, where function always trumped warmth. As Emma led him to the kitchen, his phone vibrated in his pocket. The screen displayed Jessica Ward's name again, his assistant's 12th call of the evening. With a silent apology, he silenced it. "Something important?" Emma asked, noticing the gesture. "Nothing that can't wait," Alex replied, though they both knew it was likely a polite fiction. Dinner was simple but delicious. Homemade pasta with fresh seafood, crusty bread from the local bakery, and a salad with vegetables that Emma mentioned came from the community garden. The conversation flowed easily, largely driven by Lily's endless questions about Alex's grandfather and his life in Hong Kong. "My grandfather kept detailed journals," Alex explained as they finished their meal. "He wrote about a harbor where he and Mai would meet to watch the stars. Apparently, that's where he gave her the locket, on her 10th birthday, just weeks before the occupation forces arrived." Emma nodded, her expression softening. "Grandma Mai told similar stories. She said they promised to find each other again, no matter how long it took." She rose to clear the dishes, waving away Alex's offer to help. "Lily, why don't you get the box with Grandma's things to show Alex?" While Lily bounded off to retrieve the treasures, Alex's phone vibrated again. With an apologetic glance, he stepped onto the porch to take the call. "Alex, thank God," Michael Zhao, his CFO, sounded frantic. "The Northeastern Board is meeting at midnight, our time to vote on terminating the merger agreement. We need you on a video call in 2 hours or this whole deal collapses." "I understand," Alex replied, glancing through the window at Emma and Lily, now sitting on the floor with an ornate wooden box between them. "I'll call in. Just send me the details." When he returned, the atmosphere had shifted. Though Emma said nothing about his call, he could sense her awareness of the invisible tether pulling him back to his other life. After Lily went to bed, insisting on a good-night hug from Alex that caught him off guard with its easy affection, Emma suggested they sit on the porch. The night was cool but not cold, the sound of distant waves providing a gentle soundtrack to their conversation. "Your world is calling," Emma observed, as they settled onto the porch swing, 2 mugs of tea warming their hands. Alex nodded, not bothering to deny it. "It never really stops." "What brings a CEO of your stature to a small town like Tranquil Cove? Surely not just a vacation." "Doctor's orders, actually," Alex admitted. "Apparently, 18-hour workdays and perpetual stress aren't sustainable, even for the supposedly invincible." The self-deprecating tone was new for him. Vulnerability wasn't a quality valued in corporate boardrooms. Emma's smile held no judgment. "The ocean has a way of putting things in perspective." "Does it?" Alex asked. "I've been wondering what my grandfather would think of the choices I've made. He built something impressive, but in his final years, all he talked about was Mai, and what might have been." They fell silent, looking up at the stars. Alex pointed out the constellation that matched their lockets, Cassiopeia, the seated queen. "My grandfather said it represented eternal love," Alex admitted, "something that transcends time and distance." Their eyes met, and in that moment, the connection between them was undeniable, something deeper than the coincidence that had brought them together. Just as they leaned toward each other, his phone rang loudly, the board chairman threatening to call an emergency meeting to replace him if he didn't address the crisis immediately. The moment broken, Alex reluctantly explained that he needed to return to New York the next day. "This company employs thousands of people. I can't just disconnect because I want to," he said, though the words felt hollow even to his own ears. Emma nodded with understanding but clear disappointment. "We come from different worlds, Alex. I always have to put Lily first." As Alex prepared to leave, Emma disappeared briefly into her study, returning with a small bundle of yellowed papers. "These are copies of some of my grandmother's letters where she mentions Henry. Maybe they'll help complete your grandfather's story." Their goodbye was tinged with what might have been, a connection discovered too late, just as with their grandparents before them. Back at his hotel, Alex found himself unable to focus on the crisis reports, instead reading Mai's letters long into the night, feeling a strange sense that he was betraying something important by leaving. The New York skyline towered outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Horizon Technologies conference room. 48 hours after leaving Tranquil Cove, Alex was fully restored to his CEO persona. Impeccable suit, commanding presence, and laser focus. Or at least, that's what he projected to the anxious faces of his board members gathered around the polished table. The Northeastern Pacific merger is on life support, Michael Zhao, his CFO, explained grimly. His presentation displayed a cascade of declining stock values and alarming financial projections. While you were unreachable, our competitors moved in. We have 48 hours to save this deal or lose everything we've built over the past 3 years. The words should have triggered Alex's battle instincts, the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with high-stakes corporate warfare. Instead, he found himself thinking about the small, star-shaped locket now residing in his suit pocket, a tangible reminder of a different world. Alex? Thomas Reeves, his longtime mentor and senior board member, was studying him with concern. You seem distracted. Are we keeping you from something more important? The subtle rebuke snapped Alex back to the present. Not at all. Let's review the Taiwanese semiconductor component of the deal. For the next 4 hours, Alex immersed himself in the crisis, analyzing contract clauses, calling key investors, and strategizing countermoves to save the merger. His team watched with visible relief as the Alexander Brooks they knew re-emerged, commanding and decisive. Only Sarah Jiang, the youngest board member and head of innovation, seemed to notice his occasional moments of distraction, the way his hand sometimes drifted to his pocket, or how his gaze would temporarily lose focus during discussions of long-term strategic commitments. By evening, the crisis war room had been established, displays showing real-time stock fluctuations, legal teams working through contract revisions, and communication specialists crafting press responses for every possible outcome. This was the environment where Alex had always thrived, the complex dance of corporate strategy that had defined his adult life. Yet in rare quiet moments between emergency calls, he found himself looking at the photos of the matching lockets on his phone, or rereading the text Lily had sent through Emma's phone that morning. Found a starfish shaped exactly like our necklaces. Do you think it's a sign? He had replied with appropriate enthusiasm, but hadn't mentioned that he was now 3,000 miles away, unlikely to see her starfish discovery in person. His assistant Jessica appeared at his office door well past midnight. The Tokyo team is online, and legal needs you to review the revised indemnification clauses before the morning filing. Alex nodded, suppressing a sigh. I'll be right there. Also, Jessica added, placing a folder on his desk, the Singapore expansion documents arrived. If the merger goes through, they'll need you on site to oversee the integration for at least 12 months. Singapore. The word landed like a stone. A year on the other side of the world from Tranquil Cove. From Emma and Lily. From the unexpected connection he'd barely begun to explore. The board believes your personal presence is essential, Jessica continued, misreading his hesitation. It's a testament to how highly they value your leadership. Alex thanked her and returned to the conference room, where the marathon negotiation with Tokyo continued into the early morning hours. The discussion centered on manufacturing rights and technological patents, subjects he could navigate in his sleep. Yet he found himself thinking of Emma's passionate description of her marine conservation projects during dinner, how her eyes had lit up explaining her work to protect vulnerable coastal ecosystems. At 2 a.m., after 16 straight hours of negotiations, Alex identified a critical solution to the merger problem, a complex restructuring of intellectual property rights that would satisfy both Northeastern's board and their Asian manufacturing partners. The room erupted in relieved congratulations. This is why you're the CEO, Thomas declared, clapping him on the shoulder. No one else could have found this pathway. The team began celebrating, opening bottles of expensive champagne kept for such moments of corporate triumph. Alex slipped away to his private office balcony, needing a moment of fresh air, or as fresh as Manhattan could provide. Standing 40 stories above the city, he pulled out his grandfather's locket, its silver surface reflecting the city lights. He recalled Henry's stories, told with increasing frequency in his final years, about the empire he had built and the love he had lost. I made my choice, his grandfather had told him once, and I built something remarkable. But some nights, even now, I wonder if I chose correctly. At the time, Alex hadn't truly understood. Success was success, measurable, definable, concrete. What could be more valuable? Now, holding the physical embodiment of his grandfather's unfulfilled promise, he wasn't so certain. His phone chimed with an email notification, the Singapore office lease agreement requiring his signature, a year minimum commitment starting immediately after the merger closed. His team was already celebrating this solution as if it were inevitable. Without fully analyzing his actions, Alex found himself typing a text to Emma. Found letters from my grandfather to your grandmother that were never sent. Need to show you in person. The response came several minutes later. Lily has a school presentation Friday. She'd be thrilled if you could be there. No pressure, though. I'm sure you're busy. Alex stared at the message, feeling the weight of parallel paths stretching before him. In one direction lay the carefully constructed life he had always known, predictable despite its challenges, defined by achievement and recognition. In the other lay something entirely undefined, represented only by a small coastal town, and two people who had somehow slipped past his carefully maintained boundaries. Thomas appeared at the balcony door, champagne in hand. We need you back inside. The lawyers have questions about Singapore. Alex nodded, tucking away his phone. I'll be right there. But as his mentor turned away, Alex made a decision that surprised even himself. Davis, he said quietly into his phone, calling his private pilot. Prepare the jet. We're flying back to Tranquil Cove tomorrow morning. Alex slipped into the back of the elementary school auditorium, just as the principal was introducing the next student. The space was bright with children's artwork, decorating the walls, the smell of school lunch lingering in the air, and parents packed onto small chairs, clearly designed for much smaller occupants. Next up for our Family History Day, please welcome Lily Chen, the principal announced. Lily stepped confidently to the microphone, wearing a blue dress with silver stars embroidered along the hem. Her wild curls had been partially tamed into two puffy pigtails secured with star-shaped clips. She hadn't noticed Alex yet, her gaze focused on her note cards. My presentation is about connections, she began, her voice clear and composed. Sometimes people are connected across time in ways they don't understand. Alex scanned the crowd until he spotted Emma in the third row. She was focused on her daughter, pride evident in her expression. She had no idea he was here. He'd made the decision to come without confirming, half convinced he would turn back at each step of the journey. My great-grandmother Mai had a special star necklace, Lily continued, holding up her treasure for the audience to see. It was half of a promise she made with her best friend before they were separated by war. Lily's eyes finally found Alex in the back of the room. Her face lit up with surprise and delight, her smile widening. And guess what? Her friend's grandson is here today. She pointed toward him excitedly, causing heads to turn throughout the auditorium. Alex felt a rush of self-consciousness as curious parents turned to look at the stranger in the back row. He offered a small wave to Lily, who beamed back before continuing her presentation with renewed enthusiasm. Mr. Alex has the matching star. After being apart for more than 70 years, the two halves of the promise found each other again. My science teacher says this is called statistical improbability, but my heart says it's magic. A ripple of appreciative laughter moved through the audience. Emma had twisted around in her seat, her expression a mixture of shock and something softer, something that made Alex glad he'd come, despite the corporate chaos he'd left behind. Lily's presentation continued with charming details about her great-grandmother's journey from Hong Kong to America, interspersed with surprisingly insightful observations about family connections across generations. When she finished, the applause was genuine, with several parents wiping away tears at the touching story. As families mingled afterward in the school cafeteria, Emma made her way to Alex, still clearly stunned by his appearance. You came, she said simply. I thought, when I didn't hear back. I wanted to surprise you both, Alex replied, though the truth was more complicated. He'd been making decisions hour by hour, fighting against the gravitational pull of his corporate responsibilities with each step. Lily bounded over before Emma could respond, flinging her arms around Alex with the unself-conscious affection of childhood. You came? Did you like my presentation? Did I tell the story right? You were amazing, Alex assured her, awkwardly returning her hug. The best presentation by far. Ms. Patricia said I should be a historian, Lily announced proudly, referring to her teacher. Principal Matthews approached, her interest clearly piqued by the mysterious visitor who had featured in Lily's presentation. You must be the owner of the matching locket, she said, extending her hand. What a remarkable coincidence. Alexander Brooks, he introduced himself, noticing Emma's slight tension as she waited to see if he would reveal his full identity. Thankfully, the principal didn't recognize his name, focusing instead on the historical significance of the story. Such a wonderful piece of personal history for Lily to share. We emphasize connecting children to their heritage. After several more conversations with curious parents, Emma suggested they escape the crowded cafeteria. There's a park across the street if you have time, she offered tentatively. I have time, Alex replied, the words feeling significant. As Lily ran ahead toward the playground, Emma and Alex found a bench in the dappled shade of an oak tree. For a moment, neither spoke, the weight of questions between them. How long are you staying? Emma finally asked. I don't know, Alex admitted. I should be in New York. We're in the middle of a complicated merger situation. Yet you're here, Emma observed, at a school presentation. Alex reached into his jacket and produced a bundle of aged papers, letters in his grandfather's distinctive handwriting, each addressed to my but never sent. I found these in his study after he died. He kept them all these years, but never knew where to send them. Emma took them carefully, her fingers tracing the elegant script on the uppermost envelope. She waited for him, for years. She didn't marry my grandfather until she was 30. The family always said she was waiting for someone from her past. Alex watched as she unfolded the first letter, dated 1946, just after the war. His grandfather's words, full of desperate hope and determination to find the girl with the matching star locket, filled the page. The final letter, dated just before his death, read, I built an empire but lost what mattered most. Don't let success become your prison, Alex. Find what truly matters before it's too late. He wrote that to you, Emma said softly, looking up from the letter. I never understood what he meant, Alex replied, until now. They watched Lily on the swings, her laughter carrying across the park. Alex finally opened up about his company crisis and the Singapore opportunity. I've spent my life chasing success and missing everything else, he admitted. Standing in that corporate boardroom, all I could think about was being back here with you and Lily. Emma's response was careful, measured. Lily and I have built our lives here. I can't uproot her for someone who might disappear back into his world. I don't want to disrupt your lives, Alex said earnestly. But what if I found a way to bridge our worlds instead? The question hung between them as his phone rang, his board chairman demanding his immediate return, oblivious to the much more important conversation happening in a small-town park. The Horizon Technologies board sat in stunned silence as Alex's face appeared on the video screen rather than in person. The New York conference room, with its gleaming table and city views, seemed to hold its collective breath at his unexpected announcement. I'm not coming back yet, Alex stated, his voice steady despite the gravity of his decision. And I'm proposing a complete restructuring of the company and my role in it. The split screen showed a dramatic contrast. The formal corporate boardroom filled with executives in business attire opposite Alex, seated on Emma's peaceful deck, the ocean visible behind him. He had set up a makeshift office there, laptop positioned to catch both his face and the natural beauty of the coastal setting. Have you lost your mind? Richard Harmon, the board chairman, finally sputtered. We're 48 hours from either closing the biggest merger in company history or watching it collapse entirely. I'm fully aware of the timeline, Alex replied calmly, and I've been working on the solution since 5 a.m. The revised proposal has already been sent to your emails. From inside Emma's kitchen, where she was preparing lunch, Emma could hear Alex's side of the conversation. She tried not to eavesdrop, but couldn't help worrying about Alex sacrificing his life's work for what might be nothing more than a fleeting connection. On the screen, Thomas Reeves, Alex's mentor, was reviewing the document with increasing surprise. This is actually quite brilliant, but also radical. You're suggesting we decentralize the entire operational structure? Exactly, Alex confirmed. The pandemic proved remote work is viable even at executive levels. The Singapore expansion doesn't need me physically present for 12 months. It needs strategic guidance and occasional in-person leadership. He outlined his vision, a new marine technology division based in Tranquil Cove that would partner with the Conservation Center, focusing on developing ocean monitoring technology that aligned with Horizon's environmental sustainability goals. The plan included appointing Sarah Zhang as co-CEO to handle daily operations while he focused on innovation and strategy, potentially from anywhere in the world. This isn't just about the current merger, Alex explained. It's about reimagining what a technology company can be in today's world, less centralized, more adaptive, and aligned with values beyond profit margins. The board members exchanged troubled glances. This was not the Alexander Brooks they knew, the ruthless negotiator who lived and breathed corporate strategy. 20 years ago, my grandfather told me he'd built something impressive but hollow, Alex continued, his voice softening slightly. I understand now what he meant. I'm choosing to run this company differently, not by walking away, but by leading with different priorities. Michael Zhao, the CFO, leaned forward. Alex, this is your company to shape, but the timing is precarious. The market won't respond well to significant organizational changes during a merger. That's why the announcement will wait until after we close the deal, Alex replied. For now, I need you to trust that I can navigate this merger remotely, with your support. After heated debate, the board moved to take a vote on his proposal. Alex muted his microphone while they deliberated, turning to find Emma standing in the doorway, a glass of iced tea in her hand. You heard? He asked, accepting the drink gratefully. She nodded, her expression concerned. You shouldn't upend everything for us. We barely know each other. Alex smiled. I'm not doing it just for you. I'm doing it just for you. I'm doing it for me too. My grandfather never found his way back to what mattered. I don't want to make the same mistake. Emma sat beside him, studying his face. Are you sure about this? Your company... We'll be fine, Alex interrupted gently. Possibly better. For years I've been running it the way I thought a CEO should, working around the clock, sacrificing everything else. But what if there's another way? One that allows space for the things that actually matter. On screen, the board had reconvened, their expressions somber. We've reached a decision, Richard announced. The board will approve your restructuring proposal conditionally. We expect your full attention on closing this merger and a complete strategic plan for the transition within 30 days. If either fails, we revisit this conversation. It was a narrow victory, but a victory nonetheless. After confirming next steps and scheduling another call for the following morning, Alex ended the video conference and closed his laptop. His phone chimed with the board's formal decision, written approval with their attached conditions. As he read the message, Emma placed her hand over his. Whatever they decided, she said, we'll figure it out. For the first time, she had included him in a we, and Alex felt something settle into place inside him, a sense of finally being where he belonged, despite the uncertainty ahead. Does this mean you're staying? Lily asked from the doorway, her eyes hopeful. She had clearly been listening to at least part of the conversation. Alex looked to Emma, waiting for her response. It was her life he was inserting himself into, her careful routines he was disrupting. Mr. Brooks is going to be around for a while, Emma told her daughter, her voice carefully measured. He has some work ideas that might involve the Marine Center. And my school presentation. Will you be here for that too? Lily pressed, coming fully onto the deck. What presentation is that? Alex asked. Next month. It's about ocean conservation. I'm working with Mom's research team. It's very important science, Lily explained seriously. Alex smiled. I wouldn't miss it. The simple promise felt weighty and significant, a commitment not just to a child's school event, but to being consistently present in a way he'd never prioritized before. Is your big company going to be okay without you bossing everyone around? Lily asked, her question disarmingly direct. I think they'll manage, Alex replied with a laugh. And I'm not really gone, just finding a better way to be there. Emma's expression remained cautious but hopeful. One day at a time, she suggested. Let's not rush anything. Alex nodded his agreement, But inside, he felt a certainty he couldn't explain, as if his grandfather's unfulfilled quest had somehow led him exactly where he needed to be, completing a circle that had begun more than 70 years earlier with 2 matching star lockets and a promise to find each other again. A star-shaped locket caught the sunlight as Lily ran ahead on the beach, the same shore where Alex had first helped her search for her missing treasure exactly 1 year earlier. Behind her, Alex and Emma walked hand in hand, watching as she cartwheeled in celebration. "She's been practicing those for weeks," Emma observed, smiling as Lily executed another wobbly cartwheel. "All for today's anniversary celebration, as she calls it." "A year goes by quickly," Alex replied, squeezing Emma's hand gently, "and slowly sometimes at the same time." The past 12 months had transformed not just Alex's life, but the small town of Tranquil Cove itself. The renovated lighthouse that had once stood as a silent sentinel now housed Horizon Marine Innovations on its lower levels, a division focused on developing technology for ocean conservation and research. Alex's private residence occupied the upper floors, offering panoramic views of the coastline he'd come to love. The town had been revitalized with new jobs and opportunities, yet had maintained its essential charm. Alex had been careful to ensure that growth didn't mean losing the very qualities that made Tranquil Cove special. "The research team confirmed the coral restoration project is working," Emma said as they walked. Her position as lead scientist for the joint venture between the Marine Center and Horizon had allowed her conservation work to expand in ways she'd never imagined possible. "The data from the new monitoring systems is already changing how we understand coastal ecosystems." Alex nodded, remembering the endless video calls and negotiations it had taken to align his company's resources with Emma's scientific vision. "Technology serving a purpose beyond profit. My board is still adjusting to the concept." "But the stock price isn't complaining," Emma teased. The company's innovative direction had actually strengthened its market position, surprising those who had predicted disaster when Alex announced his restructured role. They reached the spot where Lily had set up a small picnic, a blanket spread with treats from the Ocean View Cafe, where this journey had begun. The location wasn't accidental. Lily had insisted on commemorating the exact place where Alex had found her necklace. "Finally," Lily called impatiently. "I've been waiting forever. We need to do the ceremony before high tide." Alex and Emma exchanged amused glances at her dramatic tone. At 9, Lily had grown taller and more confident over the past year, but her flair for the theatrical remained unchanged. "What ceremony is this?" Alex asked, settling on the blanket beside Emma. Lily adopted a serious expression. "The official Star Promise anniversary, of course." From a small decorated box, she carefully removed both lockets, her grandmother's and the one that had belonged to Alex's grandfather. Over the months, the lockets had taken on almost mythical significance for Lily. She had researched the Cassiopeia constellation they depicted, created elaborate stories about Mai and Henry's childhood friendship, and frequently declared that fate had brought Alex to Tranquil Cove to reunite the stars. "Under the lighthouse, I made a special place," Lily announced, leading them to a small memorial she had created with Emma's help. It was a simple stone arrangement where both lockets could be displayed together, along with photographs of Mai and Henry in their later years. "They never found their way back to each other," Emma said thoughtfully as they gazed at the memorial, "but somehow they brought us together." The observation hung in the air, weighted with the strange serendipity that had led them to this moment. Alex reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I've been working with local artisans on something," he explained, suddenly feeling nervous despite all his planning, "to continue the connection and to start our own story." Inside were 3 new lockets, updated versions of the original design, each containing the Cassiopeia constellation, but with small modifications that made them uniquely theirs. The largest was clearly meant for Emma, with a small gemstone marking one of the stars. "The new lockets are incredible," Lily exclaimed, examining them closely. "Now we all match. Great-Grandma Mai and Great-Grandpa Henry would be so happy." Emma's eyes met Alex's, understanding the unspoken question in his gesture. "They're beautiful," she said softly. Alex had been preparing for this moment for weeks, yet the words still caught in his throat. "This past year has taught me more about what matters than all my years running Horizon. I never expected to find a family when I came here, but That's exactly what happened. He took her hand, the new locket nestled between their palms. I'm not asking for any formal commitment yet. I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Whatever happens next, whatever we become together, I'm here for all of it. Emma's smile held both tenderness and amusement. For someone who orchestrates billion-dollar deals, you're remarkably cautious about us. The stakes are higher, Alex replied simply. Lily, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke up. Are you two finally going to admit you're in love? Because everyone already knows. Even Principal Matthews asked me if you were getting married. The directness of her question made them both laugh, breaking the moment's tension. Sometimes the steps matter as much as the destination, Emma told her daughter, though her eyes remained on Alex. But yes, I think we're headed somewhere good together. As the three of them walked along the shore, the sun setting behind them, Alex reflected on how a single moment of kindness, stopping to help a crying child find her necklace, had led him to everything he never knew was missing. They paused at the water's edge, Lily between them holding both their hands, the new lockets catching the last golden rays of sunlight. Above them, the first stars were becoming visible in the deepening blue sky, including the distinctive shape of Cassiopeia, the same pattern from the lockets, now watching over 3 connected lives instead of 2 separated ones. Sometimes the greatest treasures are found when we least expect them, Alex said quietly, as much to himself as to his newfound family. And some promises, even ones made generations ago, find ways to be fulfilled after all. Emma squeezed his hand in silent agreement as they turned toward home, the lighthouse on the bluff, its beam now sweeping across the darkening water, guiding the way forward just as surely as the stars above. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories about unexpected discoveries and second chances. Remember to share with someone who needs a reminder that sometimes what seems lost is just waiting to be found.